Okay, so then let's start step 4 out of step 5, 5 steps of critical reading. Okay, this today it's a step 4, and say that the topic of step 4. Let me write something. The topic of step 4 is carefully read. Papers. Okay, this is the today topic. And actually, the last time it was step 3, we just analyzed about the structure of the paper. But today's lecture, step 4, is not the continuation of step 3, but technically it's of step 2. Okay, so first, let me briefly summarize the point of step 2. In step 2, what I talked was absolution, abstraction. Step 3. Step 3 was dilation. And today, we are going to talk about abstraction, okay? So for the dilation is something like a reading. It's an input directly to the output, okay? So for this, what I recommend as a first step is a colorization of the paper. Like a important point, yellow, and a more important point, green, and a question point at brown, and a keywords, the most importantly, keywords, blue, right? That was something what we've done in step 3. And today, I would like to introduce some intermediate step between the input and output. That is understanding in real sense. So first, you create your own understanding based on a reading and then re-explain it as the output. Okay? So dilation, for the dilation step, it's a step 2. Dilation step, we've learned in step 2. We just read something and pick up the words and create a new sentence. Okay, it's a kind of very straightforward summaries. And some of the students can do this already. Okay, and then the next step is making your own understanding. This is actually the core part of reading papers. So the reading and make you understand and re-explain this situation. Okay, and this one is a not really a linear process. This one is a word, and this one is word. So you can select the word and create a new word, a new sentence here. But here, sometimes you don't need a word, but you need say your own understanding, like imagination or the picture of the system or the image, and then you can re-explain it. So for example, here, it can be on English, and your own understanding in an image in your brain, and then you can explain it in Japanese or Chinese. Okay, so for this, first you need to understand. And this process, okay, technically this process can be called as abstraction. It's in narrow sense, abstraction is this step. In a wide sense, it's this step. Okay, so then let's see the step 4 in more details. say to study about the abstraction, and this time um, I'm going to stick into some technical points, okay, the reading techniques. And the basic idea of the abstraction has already been explained. Technically, it's in step 1. And then today, I'm going to stick in step 4. I'm going to stick into explaining how you can do it at a very surface point, technical point. Maybe you can follow it and you can find how you can understand something. Okay, so then techniques. So the first thing I recommend you for this is to use the reading symbols. So when you read something, maybe you can mark something on a paper, right? And for example, you can use this symbol is important or amazing, maybe important. And if you find it's more important, you can use this. And more like this. And sometimes I'm also using like this. Okay. And by this, you can make a focus. And also, when you read the paper again, you can easily find out which part you need to carefully read it again. Okay. And then an additional symbol similar to this is I frequently use this. It's impressive. No matter how it's important or not, if it gives you a new insight or a new point of view or new perspective, it can be marked. That is something I didn't think about, but it's very impressive. It's a good idea or something, right? You can mark it as impressive. And then something looks similar but totally different is this guy. It's questionable. If you cannot understand what the author claims, maybe you can mark it as a questionable. Okay. And then you can revisit again, or at least you can mark it as a further consideration, or something like it's questionable or you cannot agree. And then it's more straightforward, this one. Question, I don't understand. Sometimes the author might be wrong, but sometimes simply, I don't understand, I cannot understand. Okay? So these ones are symbols you can use to focus, to make a focus on a paper. And then there are several others to say, several others to aid to read the papers. Let me check some examples. Again, this one. Let me find some examples for this. Okay. Hold on. It's better to use some more of my other papers. Yeah, okay, here it's an example of my color paper. Like here, I use the important, it's the important point, right? And then maybe we can find some, yeah, here. Okay, then I'll talk about it first. Okay, I will summarize the point first. Okay, and after using these kind of mark, we also can say analyze the structure of the paper by ourselves. And my recommendation is using the numbering. Sometimes in a paper, the logic or statement or the items are say listed in sequence, but logically they are parallel, and you can number it to highlight it. Okay, maybe it's a little bit difficult to understand, so I will show some result. Okay, for here, for example, you can see I number it 1, 2, right? And in the next page, 3. This one, 3. Okay. And let's check number 1. Some of them are based on sparse sample constraint, meaning that sample is restricted to limited area and the surrounded free space is used as a reference beam. By contrast, this one, other strategies. Okay, so this one is one strategy, and this one is a second strategy. So I just found they are parallel items, and I number it 1, 2. Other strategies have a clear region at the input plane by the field of view. And next page, manipulating to transmit blah, blah, blah. And then here, also following this plan of minimum complexity to allow QPI, there is another appealing strategy, right? The third item. So when you read from the beginning through the end, sometimes you are going to meet the structure of the paragraph or the items, but you can clarify it by numbering it. Maybe I can find some other examples. Yeah, here again, I'm using it. Let's wait a bit. Yeah. The first, this one is easy actually. The first, the sample can be easily moved. And the second, two, the displacement of the camera at the image space must be larger than the sample. Okay. So you can actually, it is quite clear and straightforward, but you can highlight it. And again, it can make a focus to you. So it definitely make your understanding easy. Okay, and not numbering, but I found another example. I sometimes use the same symbol in a figure. By carefully checking this optical setup, I can find these two displacements are important. So I just marked these points by the exclamation mark. Okay, it's more important than double exclamations. Okay, get it? This is the first point. It's a technique. And also, in addition, okay, then let's go back to this. Maybe numbering items. I'm going to bring it to the next page. Numbering items. And also, numbering item is to clarify the logic. Maybe, hold on. Okay, numbering items is one way. And the second way is focus on connective words. Yeah, okay. Like hence, however, because, due to, or something else, namely. For example, okay, these are words for connection, clarify the logic of the author. So it's words to focus on it. Like hence is A, hence B means this relationship. A is a reason or the cause of B, right? And maybe because is also similar. A because B. So in this case, that the direction of the arrow is opposite. But in anyway, it explains the causation. And due to is again A due to B is the same, right? And however is something similar but not the same. A, however, B is A, however, B, right? A and B are controversial to each other, okay? And namely, okay, these are now, say, we found two types, A, B, or equivalently, actually it's the same, it's the difference of the order. And the second type is however style, however, that, and anything, okay? And the third type is this guy, namely, for example, A, namely B, or A, for example, B, is something like this style. They are essentially the same. They just explain in a different word or expound a bit in details. But the logical structure of them are the same, A equals B. Or technically, for example, the B is contained in A. But in anyway, you can simplify at the first step, A equals B, okay? Let me clarify. Okay, and this one is namely on, say, due to, no, namely, and for example, by the way, namely can be written as IE in shortened form, and for example is EG. Okay, maybe you can sometimes find this way of writing in the papers. Okay, and there is actually the fourth form. It's plus A plus B, additional information in addition to B. So this one is, for example, you can use in addition. or furthermore. Okay, so you can focus on these words for connection. It clarifies your logic. Okay, and sometimes on the paper doesn't show clearly or explicitly these words, but by carefully checking what they are claiming, you can find a logical structure. And maybe you can use these symbols in the paper. You can write or draw these symbols on the paper. Okay, let me check some example. Yeah, this one. The selection oh, the selection of the best focus distance delta z is the key concept for retrieving high quality images. To properly select delta z, we have performed the following analysis. Okay, here in this case, there is no clear connective word, but what you can find is to. It's a purpose, right? So to properly select delta z, this symbol. Okay, to properly select, the first part is the cause of the second part. Okay, so in this case, you can clarify their logic by using this symbol. Okay, you don't need to do you don't need to do you don't need to do this for all of the sentences. But if you found there is some difficulty to understand, you can surely use it to help you understand the point of the paper. Got it? And I think most of the scientific papers, it's not that much necessary. But for some, say, theoretical papers or something, it based on quite, say, complicated logic. So in this case, it's worth to try. And also for the beginners, like a student, young and junior students, it surely help you understand the paper. Okay. And maybe in addition, this one is just a reminder. Maybe I've already talked about it in first step 1 or step 2, but this one is a self-paragraph cutting. Even the author didn't cut the paragraph. If he found they changed the topic, we can put this symbol to clarify the topic was changed. Got it? Okay, then let's go back. Now, you have some tools to carefully read the paper. And the next step I would like you to do is summarize the paragraph. Each paragraph. Okay. When you read one paragraph, and for this, you can use these symbols and the colors we've already talked. And then after reading each paragraph, you can summarize or you can make an abstract of each paragraph next to it like this. For example, in my case, okay, I read this paragraph, okay, and then summarize the point here. It's not only the selection of the word, but it's not only the distillation means. First, I understand what their point and explain it by using my own word. Like that the focusing range was defined to be 30 microns to 880 microns based on the experiment. Okay, you can check it. You can when you check that the sentences, actually they wrote a lot of things in the details, and I didn't select the word of them, but I re-explain it by own words. Okay. By the way, also I can find that questionable. I thought some of their claims are questionable, and I explained why it's questionable to me. But anyway, this one is an additional point. So now the important point is here. So you can explain their point by a single sentence. For each paragraph, you can do this. Like this one, it's an evaluation of background SDs of the amplitude and the phase. And I see figure 3. Yeah, again, here. Okay, so if you can summarize the point of a single paragraph in a short sentence, as short as you can write in a paper margin, this means you understood it. Okay, you don't need to put any information here. So if you want to know the detailed information, simply you can read that part of the paper again. But this one is to construct your own understanding, very short, but a fundamental understanding. Okay, that is the core part of step 4, today's part. Okay, summarize each paragraph as a short sentence. Constructed with your own words. Okay, and it's not needed to be detailed. So if you want to know the details, you can read the paragraph again. But summarize the important point. Summarize your understanding, not their paragraph, technically. So understand first, and then summarize your understanding here. Okay, this is the core part of step 4. Okay, that again, only the core part of step 4. But before closing step 4, I just talked something a bit about step 5. Okay, now I've explained the say summarization or abstraction of each paragraph. And once you do it, after reading all of the paper, okay, like this. Oh, hold on. So I did it through the paper like this. And then after reading it, you can summarize the point of the paper in a single page by handwriting. So read the paper first, and after reading it, you can take 5 to 10 minutes to summarize them. Okay, and in my case, I'm always using the handwriting. There are 2 reasons. The one is handwriting is laboring. So I try to use as short sentence as possible. Okay, so when you use a computer, it's quite easy to draw something, write something. So I'm always using a very long sentences. But it doesn't help to make an abstraction. The short sentence, as short as possible, is always better. Shorter sentence is always better for the abstraction. It's not really needed to be accurate, but a short is better. So for this, I just give me a penalty to write a long sentence. That's the handwriting. Okay. And the second point is when you write, when you make a handwriting, for example, in my case on our iPad, it's easy to see the paper. Okay, it's not easy to see the paper as I'm writing. Okay, I'm using a single device to write it. So this means I cannot frequently refer the paper itself. So this means I need to summarize it based on my memory. Now, surely we can check it again, but it has some cost, right? It's a kind of balance. So we can check it, but maybe if you try it, you try to remember something before checking it. It's easier with this style. But if you use a computer in one hand to write a summary, and I have a paper next to it, maybe you will start to copy some sentences in a summary. Okay, it's not a purpose. So because of these two practical reasons, I'm always using handwriting. So it's a kind of A4 paper, but in reality, if you write it in an MS Word, for example, it can be something like a 1/3 or half of the paper. So it's kind of a quite short summary that is written by myself. So if you can do it, it's going to be the end of step 5. But anyway, today we've talked about step 4, and but even after step 4, you can try this. And in a step 5 for the next course, next time, I'm going to a little bit more talking about how you can reach to this point. It's a step 5. This is the next lecture. Got it? And the next and maybe the final lecture of this 5-time course series. Got it? Okay. Any question, comments, feedbacks? Fine. Okay, so then let's close to this lecture, step 4. Thank you.